Oh, hi. Huge movie fanatic Nate, just finishing up my final exam. Not really. I'm a huge movie fanatic Nate, here to do a movie and Blu-ray review of Final Exam. Some may pass the test. God help the rest. This is a movie that I, just like so many horror movies, I probably got used on VHS back when video, what were they, like Movie Gallery, Video Updates, whatever, it was the same company, were closing or selling off their VHS or whatever like that. So I remember, I'm pretty sure you could get like, there's either 10 or 20 VHSs for $10, something like that. And I got to comment, or the VHS of Final Exam, and I remember watching it. This was probably maybe 2002 or something like that. I remember watching it and going, oh, that's kind of cool, and you know, that's pretty much it. Kind of cool. It's just like, what the hell? And I don't think I really ever necessarily watched it again, just because obviously it wasn't one of those movies that was just like, whoa, man, this is great, because it's, you know, not incredibly great, although it's got great things about it. The criterion of slasher movies, Scream Factory, has just recently, within the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, released a beautiful, beautiful Blu-ray of Final Exam, which I'll get to the review of that at the end of this presentation. But I just thought I'd mention that because that's the whole reason that I obviously seen it again and have it, you know, bought that version. And it's just like, you know, it's like a 1981 or whatever, and it's an independent slasher movie. It's like, you know, Blu-ray Scream Factory treatment. Of course I'm going to get it, even though I don't remember it being that wonderfully great. So I got it, and first of all, like I say, the Blu-ray review will be at the end of this presentation. But first of all, I mean, the Blu-ray, I'm going to very briefly mention the Blu-ray is fantastic and glorious, and okay, that's it. On to the review of the movie. So I watched it the first time, and I'm like, oh, I had like 2 stars. And then I rewatched it again, because it is a little bit, it's kind of somewhat forgettable, and I rewatched it again within the last week, and I'm like, let's go 2.5 stars for Final Exam. It's got a lot of, just like so many movies, like, I think this is right around the very same time, what's that one with Tom Hanks' first movie? He Knows You're Alone. I did a review of that, or me and Matt did a review of that like a couple falls ago. It was the fall before last fall, I believe. And you know, this came out exactly around, if not the same year, exactly around that time that came out. And what's ironic is they both start with the exact same scene. The only difference is, in He Knows You're Alone, the scene turns out to be a scene from a movie, which is very much like we commented on that review, the beginning of Scream 2. And in this case, it's not, you know, it's a scene from a movie, except for the movie's, you know, scene from the movie Final Exam, but it's a scene that actually takes place where, you know, it's the parked kids, and it's like, you know, making out in the back, and I think it's the same thing where the guy's like trying to get the girl, and the girl's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable here. And it's just like, where the fuck do you gotta feel comfortable, bitch? That's what I think in my mind. It's just like, you know, they just love nothing's ever right, you know. There's something always they can find wrong about any situation, but I digress. It's like, oh, what was that out there? And first of all, when I first saw the Blu-ray just recently, the first time, when the killer puts his face down, you know, in the windshield, I thought it was like a corpse body or something. It was just it's like, it's very much like He Knows You're Alone, in the sense that it's a complete Halloween ripoff. I mean, they're completely trying to capitalize on Halloween, even so much so that the music, just like He Knows You're Alone, in Final Exam is very Halloween-like, you know. But what's interesting is both of these movies just went with a, you know, they didn't want to go too far in the ripoff of Halloween department, so they just went with a maskless killer, where they're just trying to be like, he's got this, he puts his head down and it's upside down, and it's just like, ah. But as a horror movie slasher fan, you just think it's a corpse, and you don't realize, oh, it's like a couple moments later you're like, oh, I guess that was the killer's face. It's just like, whatever. So this very first opening scene of Final Exam is kind of cool and moody and just, you know, cliched slasher, early 80s slasher movie fare, and it's, you know, it's cool, and the girl's cute, and the guy's like, must just be some of the boys on the team, some of the fellows, some of the guys on the team. He's just jealous of they're just jealous of their quarterback. And it's just like all this lame dialogue. It's just like perfect slasher, you know, early 80s slasher dialogue. So the kills, you know, he pulls the guy out. It's kind of cool because they do a little bit of a twist on it because he's got a convertible, and the killer cuts the top and pulls the guy out. Although when you see the shot from over there, it looks like the top is down, you know, pulled back a little bit, and he's not really pulling him out of the roof. He's just pulling him from out of the between the windshield and the top that's a little bit lowered, and he just puts him on the hood, and he's just like, you know, and it's just kind of whatever. And then, unfortunately, I mean, shit, that's like that's the first and last, like, kill moment until like an hour, somewhere around 50 minutes or an hour into the movie, which is, a lot of people, when I look briefly on forums, blue-ray.com and stuff like that, that's a lot of people's problem with the movie, which they have a point, which is the movie just like takes 90, or not 90, but 50 minutes or so to even get going, so to speak. But, you know, having rewatched it, you know, watched it the first time when I got it, then rewatched it within the last several days, I'm like, you know, the thing about the movie, yes, it is slow, and yes, it does take a while to get going, but it's kind of, I don't really mind living in this quaint, you know, very independent, low budget, early 80s slasher, you know, college setting, and just watching these characters do whatever. You got Courtney, and of course, don't forget Radish. There's a murderer somewhere on campus killing people. We got Radish and Courtney, you know, very much like the dorm that dripped blood. For me, I kind of like, she's not, I don't think she's as attractive as the woman, or the girl from Dorm That Dripped Blood, but I like Courtney. I like that girl next door-ishness about her. I like Courtney, and I've always liked her ever since I seen, you know, that VHS that I got in like 2002 or whenever it was. I like Courtney's character, and the fact that she's not with which is a ripoff of Halloween, of course, and Laurie Strode, but the fact that she's not with a guy, and she's kind of like jealous or whatever, you know, resentful of the blonde bitch who screws, you know, professors to get a good grade and all this stuff. That's kind of a cool little thing they put in the movie. So I'm going to go 2.5 stars after watching the Blu-ray twice. Don't get me wrong, it's not amazing, but it's got some pretty quintessential, I'd say the most quintessential, like the scene of the movie pretty much is that, which isn't really a big deal, but compared to the overall gist of the movie, it's pretty big deal. The very famous scene where, what's his name, Wild Man, I was going to say Funny Man, Wild Man is getting the pills or whatever, and the killer shows up at the gym, and that very cool shot, which I gotta give him props for. One of the coolest things in the movie is when the thing on the gym floor lights up and the killer's just there. And I like the killer, he comes across to me like some big Native American guy. He's probably some Native American guy, but I like the killer's like physique and his just plain green shirt and whatever, and the way that you don't really see his face throughout the movie, and then towards the end it's like, oh, they're kind of trying to hide his face, that's cool. And then towards the end they just kind of show his face, and it's just like, there's his face. But that's probably the highlight, or one of the most famous things in the movie is that scene where the what's his name, Wild Man, is beat up and, you know, punched up and beat up by the killer, who actually has no name or anything. He's just No Name, that's his name. And you know, bashed into the weight room, gym equipment room, and he gets strangled by the weight equipment, and that's probably the most standout, memorable, like, kill scene sequence from the movie, and probably one of the most famous ones from it. Now, a lot of people also, if you read the forums and reviews and stuff like that, have a problem with the fact that the killer, we know nothing about it. Now, if you know anything about me, which you may or may not, I don't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I kind of like that, because every movie seems to do the thing, the Michael Myers thing. Of course, in the first movie, we've talked about this in our Halloween reviews. In the first Halloween, we knew a little bit about him. We knew his history. We knew his name. but that's it. We didn't know why he's going after these particular people, and in actuality, there is no reason in the first movie. He's just randomly picking out people or whatever, you know. But we do know Michael Myers' name, and of course his past, his history with what he did to his sister. Where in this case, and I actually give this movie props for this, because most movies feel like, I was going to say, that most movies feel like they have to give a backstory and put everything, line all the dominoes up and just go, you know, and it's just like, to me that's, you know, depending on what it is, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's expected. And to me, I give this movie props for actually just, because if you're on the receiving end of this as a victim or even as just a witness, that's exactly what it's like. A guy comes, you know, he's stalking around campus in a van and he shows up and he kills you, and it's just like, you don't know his past, you don't know his name. As someone living as a character in that world, if someone comes up and kills you or tries to chase you, you don't know anything about him. So as a viewer, you're in the same boat as the victim in that regard. So that's kind of cool. And I give the movie props for that. And how it ends where the guy just, you know, falls and then she goes down and of course walks right by him. And that's like, blah, and she's actually on the cover of the VHS with this, you know, stabbing the killer, you know. And she goes out and just on the steps and puts her head down, and you know, music rolls, credits rolls, and that's just like, oh man, that's kind of cool. It's a mystery. Who was this guy and why? But as you can tell, because the first scene took place at another college, he must just be, maybe he was expelled. What's great about that is you can make up your own reason. Maybe he was someone who could never afford to go to college. Maybe he was expelled. Maybe he was like Wild Man. Maybe he got expelled. Maybe the college was built on the Indian reservation, and you know, you could, and he's taken back his revenge. You could do any number of reasons, but I actually give the movie, once again and final time, props for doing that. No information on the killer and just having him be a force of nature, or you know, just a force of death. And of course, in this day of false flag school shootings and false flag shootings all over the place, we have the scene that, you know, when you watch it now, you see a lot differently than you would have back then, with the scene that would never probably obviously be in an A movie now, or any kind of movie for that matter, is the college shooting prank, of course, which is like, when you watch it now, it's like, ooh, you know, the state would want you to become overwrought with fear and panic, and just like want you know, they'd want you to call out for the state's help, and you know, you feel like you should be put on lockdown when that scene in Final Exam takes place, where the van drives up and the masked perpetrators are shooting students at random, and seemingly at random, and taking them into the van, only to find out it's a college prank perpetrated by Wild Man and the whatever the hell fraternity he belongs to. But some of the standout characters, of course, besides Radish and Courtney, are, you know, Wild Man is like, I'm offensive. Of course, I can't put that on here because I can't rip the Blu-ray, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And so I do agree with the people on forums and reviews who say the movie is slow. It is slow, and like I say, after the first kill in the very beginning, it takes like 50 minutes or more for another kill to happen. But in between that time, the killer is briefly stalking around, and they're ripping off Michael Myers stuff, and Radish and Courtney are talking about stuff and all this and that. And Radish is just like this nerd. He's like, I can't help it. I'm brilliant. You know, and then he's got this scene with Courtney, like this is like the last time they see each other, where he's like, you're prettier. And it's just like, that was stupid, kid. Oh. And it's just like, because obviously the guy comes across as gay, which is fine, good for him, all that stuff. But I don't understand, is he supposed to be straight? Is he supposed to like Courtney? I don't quite understand that, because, you know, obviously whatever. But, you know, those characters are classic, and Radish and Courtney, and I don't know his name, but the guy who has that Corvette, you know, And the other girl with the pin the pin ends up back here. You got the whatever pin. And so anyway, before this goes too long, which maybe it already has, I will leave it at that and say, oh, I'll leave it at that for the movie review portion of the movie. 2.5 stars for Final Exam. And now, on to the Scream Factory Blu-ray of Final Exam. This says about new high definition transfer from the original camera negative, which I can believe because this movie looks better than it ever deserves to look on this Blu-ray. That's all there is to it. It looks better than it deserves to look. And seeing one of these old, just independent 1981 classic slasher movies look this good is a treat to behold, I have to tell you. Now, that's the picture aspect. The sound aspect is a little bit different, of course, just like I would have liked. It's just original mono, which is fine, but the problem with the sound is it does have a little bit of hiss, which you're not used to hearing on a Blu-ray, which, you know, is a little problem. But all I did, I got 5.1 on the projector, so I just got the stereo, I got the sound on the TV. I watched this on the TV, not the projector. And for sound on the TV, I just have the Blu-ray thing connected to it, just a stereo, 2 speakers, little micro Sony thing, where you can adjust treble by 6 points and bass by 6 points. So normally treble and bass is all the way up, so all I did is just notch treble down like 3 points just to 0 instead of +3. And it's fine. All you got to do is just adjust your speakers for it. But that's one of the drawbacks, I would say, to the Blu-ray, is that I don't know if it's there the whole time, I would imagine, because I turned down the treble right away, but it's got some hiss, which, like I say, you're not used to hearing on a Blu-ray. I guess I wasn't aware of this, but I guess this movie had come out before on Code Red. May have put out a DVD of it, which I didn't know anything about or whatever. So I imagine this commentary and these interviews on this Blu-ray are from that Code Red, because it's got Code Red here, are from that Code Red DVD. So nothing here except possibly, don't quote me, but possibly nothing here except for the transfer is anything new. So if you had the Code Red version. So in closing, I would highly recommend, if you're a fan of early 80s slasher movies and college campus slasher movies. And I don't think this is a title that Randy, I'm not sure, but I don't think he mentioned this in Scream 2 when he was dropping the names of some of the movies like Dorm That Drip Blood and stuff. He may have, I don't know. But I would highly recommend the Blu-ray, of course, of Final Exam, and give Shout your money, if you can, because they continually surprise and just like, oh my gosh, yes, and put out these Blu-rays of things that you never thought you'd ever be able to see in this kind of quality. So, like I say, Shout Factory at this point, as far as I'm concerned, is a criterion of independent early 80s slasher movies and just, exploitation movies in general. So support them if you're able. If you're not able, just forget about it and support yourself. So thank you very much for watching my Final Exam movie and Blu-ray review. And thanks for watching.